Welcome to the Latria Dulia debate. Our debate today will attempt to answer the following. Can Dulia and Proskuneo be used in a religious context without being worshipped? Our debaters today are William Albrecht taking the affirmative position and Turretinfan taking the negative. William Albrecht is currently a Catholic apologist and the webmaster of the Catholic Legate apologetics organization. William was raised into a non-religious practicing household and eventually became a Protestant. After much studying and the undertaking of a religious career, William converted to the Catholic faith close to 7 years ago. His contact information is youtube.com/GNRhead or gnrhead@gmail.com. Turretinfan is a Reformed apologist who operates the blog Thoughts of Francis Turretin. His only relevant qualifications is that he is a believer with the Bible. He makes no claims of being anyone particularly important, and he dates pseudonymously in hopes of drawing the attention away from himself. His contact information is turretinfan.blogspot.com, and he occasionally posts on aomin.org. My name is Chaplin, and I'll be moderating this debate. The debate will last about an hour in length and will follow the following format. There will be a first affirmative construction by Albrecht, which will be 7 minutes, a cross-X of the affirmative by the negative position, which is 3 minutes, one negative constructive by Turretin, which will be 8 minutes, a cross-X of the negative by the affirmative, which will be 3 minutes, one affirmative rebuttal, which will be 4 minutes, the negative rebuttal, which will be 7, and a second affirmative rebuttal, which will be 4. We do ask each debater to please refrain from making any comments or audible gestures during the opponent's allotted time. This will not only show respect for your opponent during this endeavor, it will also allow for there to be meaningful discussion on both ends of this debate. And as always, if your favorite debater makes a point you agree with, audience, please hold your applause until the end of his allotted time. Now we begin with the first affirmative construction by Mr. Albrecht. Mr. Albrecht, you have 7 minutes. I'll begin the clock when you begin.
All right, from the get-go, I'd like to say God bless both Dulia and Turretin for making this happen. And let's get down to the issues now. The contention that I've been hearing from my Protestant brethren is that there simply is no biblical distinction between Latria and Dulia in the terms of religious context. Well, the fact of the matter is, what I'm asserting is that Dulia and Latria are two distinct words, used differently at times. Sure, Dulia is and should always be rendered to God, but it's also shown as being rendered elsewhere in references that are not directed towards God. Latria is never shown as proper towards anyone other than God, and that is clear. But Dulia is different, of course. It should be rendered to God, of course. It's service, and we are to obey and serve our God. That is clear. To me, it seems like a silly qualifier to claim that Dulia can be given to mankind, but it's never shown as given to mankind in a religious context. This entails our Protestant brethren to begin to claim that since Catholics do give Dulia to the saints, that it is in a religious manner. This then leads them to say that we offer them worship, since this form of Dulia is in the religious form. To me, it seems like a game of words that can be confusing to some that don't know the real issues. The reason I believe that Aomin has to set up this false interpretation of biblical words is because it then allows them to say that Dulia is indeed used towards mankind, but never in a religious context. What Aomin means to say is that Dulia is never used towards mankind in a worship context as it is of God in the Old Testament. We would not argue with that. We do not contend that we give the religious Dulia to Mary that amounts to worship, or to any saint for that matter. These word games can confuse some, but once examined, they seem anything but serious. They're silly little word games that attempt to confuse the mind of the individual. It is also contended that proskuneo, when used in a religious context, is always worship. Therefore, according to Aomin, this all amounts to Catholics worshiping Mary and the other saints. We'll examine a bit more to see how these claims simply do not hold water. Upon the examination of the Freiburg lexicon, the Barclay and Newman Greek dictionary, the Louanida, Liddell and Scott lexicon, and Thayer's Greek lexicon, we see that Dulia can be given to mankind, and never do we have the qualifier that Aomin has seemingly adopted from John Calvin. Moving forward, the one lexicon that Mr. White of Aomin did bring up, the BDA&G, to support his position of not mentioning a distinction, surely does. In fact, The BDA&G tells us that Dulia is used in many aspects of the Christian life, including aspects that are tied in with the religious. Moving a bit forward, the Oxford Dictionary of the Christian Church defines Latria as such. As contrasted with Dulia, that fullness of divine worship which may be paid to God alone. A Catholic theologian, Ludwig Ott, tells us the veneration of the saints is called absolute Dulia. The Council of Trent declared in connection with the veneration of saints that through images we honor the saints which they represent. As regards the invocation of the saints, the Council declared, it is good and profitable to appeal to help from them. This can be found on page 319 of Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma from Ott. The New Advent Catholic Encyclopedia defines Dulia as such, a theological term signifying the honor paid to the saints, while Latria means worship given to God alone. Then we move on, and we've got the New Advent Catholic Encyclopedia, which tells us that of Latria is worship called forth by God and given exclusively to Him as God, which is designated by the Greek term latrio. So everywhere you turn, you see the clear distinction between the two terms, and never the qualifier that we see certain Protestant individuals injecting. And in order to pretty much lay the groundwork, I've mentioned a couple of lexicons, Greek dictionaries, and I've also defined the terms as put forth by the Catholic encyclopedias. Okay, that'll be it for my opening statement.
Okay, Turretin, you have 3 minutes for cross-examining William.
Mr. Albrecht, do you see any biblical passage in which Latria and Dulia are distinguished?
In which Latria and Dulia are distinguished? Absolutely. Are you asking me passages in which they both appear?
No, what I'm asking is this. Is there some passage out there where Scripture says it's okay to give Latria to God, but it's not okay to give Latria to men?
Are you referring to the fact that I'm not quite understanding. Are you trying to ask me to approach this from a theological perspective, or do you want me to pull out a biblical passage which uses both terms and distinguishes between them? I don't quite understand the question.
Well, the question, I guess, is getting to whether or not the theological position that you're advocating is a theological position derived from Scripture. My contention is that it's not, but I'd like to know if you believe there's some Scripture passage in which in effect says it's okay to give Dulia to men.
Oh, okay. I understand it a little bit clearer now. Absolutely. I believe that you are of the persuasion, you do believe that it is all right to give Dulia to man, right? You just don't believe that it's all right to give Dulia in the form of a religious context. Am I correct?
Well, yes, of course. I'm not saying that it's improper for servants to give service to their masters. What I'm asking for is somewhere where the Bible's making the theological distinction that you're making.
You mean that Dulia can be used towards mankind in a religious context? Would you like me to show you an example?